everybody. You know I love it when you send in topics for our deep dives, and this one is right up my alley.
Simple habits for happiness.
Exactly. I got really into the science of happiness episode you sent.
Yeah, it's amazing how much research is out there backing up these almost obvious
Well,
strategies.
you think, come on, does it really make a difference? But then you hear the science and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating is how much these habits all kind of play off each other.
Oh, absolutely. Like it's not just about doing one thing, it's about how they all work together.
Exactly. It's like this positive feedback loop. You
Yeah.
do one thing, it boosts another, which makes it easier to do the first thing even more.
Yeah, it's like they create this upward spiral of good vibes and positive changes.
Exactly.
Speaking of good vibes, I gotta say, when they first mentioned gratitude, I was like, okay, here we go again.
It does sound kind of basic, doesn't it?
Right, like, oh yeah, gratitude, I know I should be grateful, but does it really change anything? But they actually make a really compelling case for something as simple as a gratitude journal. Just like 3 things you're thankful for each day.
You know, it's not just about feeling warm and fuzzy, though. Don't get me wrong, that's great. But there's actually some hardcore neuroscience behind it.
Oh yeah, tell me more.
So when you consistently focus on gratitude, your brain actually starts rewiring itself.
Whoa, so it's not just like a mood booster, it's like literally training your brain.
Exactly. All those negative thought loops we get stuck in. Gratitude helps break those cycles.
Okay, now that is super interesting. I'm already thinking of all the times I get stuck in a negative thought spiral and how this could help.
Right. And when you can short circuit those negative patterns, it lowers your stress hormones, things like cortisol. And at the same time, it encourages your brain to pump out those feel-good neurochemicals.
You're talking about dopamine.
Dopamine, serotonin, all the good stuff.
Right, like if you're constantly focusing on what's wrong, stressing about everything, your brain chemistry is going to reflect that. But if you're actively looking for things to be grateful for.
You literally shift your brain's default setting. It's like
Okay.
you're slowly turning the dial from negative to positive.
I love that analogy. Tuning our brains to a more positive frequency.
Precisely. And you know what else helps with that? Mindfulness,
Yeah.
which is a perfect segue into our next topic.
Okay, mindfulness. I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like everyone's talking about mindfulness, but I'm not always sure what it really means in practical terms. Like, do I need to be sitting on a meditation cushion for an hour every day?
You know, a lot of people think mindfulness requires intense meditation retreats or something. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
So what are we really talking about when we say mindfulness?
It's really just about bringing your attention to the present moment without judgment, like really focusing on what you're experiencing right now, your senses, your thoughts, your feelings. Even something as simple as taking a few minutes to focus on your breath can be a great mindfulness practice.
So it's like hitting the pause button on all the mental chatter and just being present in the moment.
You got it.
Hmm.
And you'd be surprised how much of a difference that can make. This increased self-awareness, it has this ripple effect.
What do you mean?
Well, for one thing, it helps us regulate our emotions more effectively. You know how sometimes we react impulsively and then later we're like, ugh, why did I say
Oh,
so?
tell me about it. I've definitely had my share of foot and mouth moments.
Right. Mindfulness helps us respond thoughtfully instead of just reacting. And on top of that, it can even help with decision making. Because we're more aware of our thoughts and feelings, we can make choices that are more aligned with our values.
It sounds like mindfulness is less about clearing your mind completely and more about, like you said, just noticing those thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. And you know what else can help us feel more grounded and in control?
What's that?
Good old-fashioned exercise.
All right, now we're talking my language. I am a huge believer in those feel-good endorphins.
Hmm.
There's nothing like that post-workout high.
Right. Endorphins are definitely a big part of it. They work like a natural antidepressant. But the benefits of exercise go way beyond just a temporary mood boost.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that when I'm exercising regularly, I just feel better overall, more energy, better sleep.
Exactly. Improved sleep, increased self-esteem, a greater sense of self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy, that's a good one. It's
Yep.
like, I can do this. I can tackle anything.
Yes. And all that from just moving your body regularly. It's honestly amazing how much of a difference it makes. Even if it's just a brisk walk a few times a week, it can significantly impact your well-being.
Okay, I'm convinced. I'm adding exercise more to my to-do list right now. What else do they talk about in the episode?
Well, they talk about something else that's incredibly important for our happiness,
And that is
our social connections.
our relationships with others, right? That makes sense. I mean, we're social creatures by nature.
Exactly. They emphasize how crucial strong social bonds are for our happiness.
Yeah.
And it's not just about having deep, meaningful conversations all the time, although those are great too.
Right. Sometimes it's just about letting loose and having fun with people you care about.
Exactly. Laughter, shared experiences, those things are just as important.
So it sounds like they're saying it's about quality and quantity when it comes to our connections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it all comes back to that fundamental human need to feel a sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger than ourselves. When those needs are met, it acts as a buffer against stress, a source of support during tough times. Plus, it adds so much purpose and meaning to our lives.
It's like having a cheer squad in your corner, but also people who will be there for you when times get tough.
Exactly. It's about having that support system.
So we've got gratitude, mindfulness, exercise, and strong social connections, all essential for happiness, it seems. What else did they mention?
Well, they also talked about something that's often overlooked, especially in today's fast-paced world,
Oh, and what's that?
taking care of ourselves.
Ah, self-care. I'll admit, sometimes I feel guilty about taking time for myself. Like I should be doing something productive or checking things off my to-do list.
I get that.
Hmm.
But the truth is, self-care is not selfish. It's essential. It's not just about bubble baths and face masks, although those can be nice too. It's really about intentionally incorporating activities into your routine that recharge your batteries.
I like that. So it could be anything from reading a good book to taking a walk in nature to spending time on a hobby you love, anything that helps you feel more like yourself.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate or time-consuming. Even small acts of self-care can make a big difference.
I'm picking up on a theme here. Small changes, big impact. It sounds like that's one of the key takeaways from this Science of Happiness episode.
Absolutely. And, one thing that really struck me was how they talked about random acts of kindness
Oh, I love that.
and how those, even small gestures, can create this ripple effect of positivity.
Yeah, it's amazing how good it feels to do something nice for someone else, even if it's something small.
Totally. And it's not just about being a good person, although of course that's a good thing. There's actually a scientific reason why it feels so good.
Okay, tell me more.
So when we do something kind, our brains release oxytocin.
Oh, oxytocin, isn't that the love hormone or
Yeah,
something?
that's the one. And oxytocin, it's not just about romantic love. It's also released when we connect with others in a positive way, like through acts of kindness.
So it's like we get a little hit of happiness, both the giver and the receiver.
Exactly. And that feeling of connection, that sense of purpose you get from helping others, that contributes to overall happiness too.
Yeah. It's like that saying, the best way to cheer yourself up is to cheer someone else up.
Exactly. And speaking of things that boost our mood and give us a sense of purpose, they also talked about setting goals.
Ah, goals. I'm a big believer in setting goals, but I'll admit, sometimes I get a little carried away. Like, my to-do list is a mile long, and I'm setting these unrealistic expectations for myself.
I hear you. It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking, I'll be happy when I achieve X, Y, and Z.
Yes, that's exactly it. I'll be happy when.
But the thing is, happiness isn't about checking off some massive to-do list.
So how do we find that balance between striving for more, but also being content with where we are?
Well, that's where the realistic part of setting goals comes in. They emphasize that it's not about aiming for some grand, elusive ideal. It's about setting our sights on something meaningful, but crucially attainable, and then breaking it down into smaller, manageable steps.
Okay, so instead of saying, I want to write a novel, which can feel super overwhelming, it's about breaking it down into smaller chunks, like, I'm going to write for 30 minutes every day.
Precisely. Because every time we achieve a goal, even a small one, our brains reward us with a surge of dopamine.
Oh, there's that dopamine again. I'm telling you, our brains are wired for this stuff.
They absolutely are. And that dopamine hit, it not only feels good, but it also fuels our motivation to keep going, to keep striving for more. But it's important to make sure those goals are aligned with our values.
You mean it's not just about achieving for the sake of achieving, it's about pursuing things that truly resonate with who we are and what we want out of life.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where our passions and our goals intersect. And you know what else can make that journey a whole lot more enjoyable?
What's that?
Laughter.
Oh, absolutely. Laughter is the best medicine. They talked about that in the episode, right?
They did. They
Yeah.
talked about how a good laugh can instantly boost your mood, reduce stress, even relieve pain.
Seriously, is there anything laughter can't do? It's like a superpower.
It kind of is. When we laugh, our brains release endorphins, which have those mood-boosting and pain-relieving effects we've been talking
Yeah.
about.
Endorphins are little happy chemicals.
Right. And laughter also reduces those stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline.
It's like our body's natural stress reliever,
Yeah,
and it's free.
exactly. And, it's not just good for us individually. Laughter is also incredibly connecting.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing like sharing a good laugh with someone. It instantly breaks the ice, strengthens
It's
bonds.
like this universal language that brings people together.
It's true. And what I find so fascinating about all these habits we're discussing is that they're not exactly revolutionary?
What do you mean?
Like, it's not like they discovered some brand new secret to
It's
happiness.
more like common sense backed by science.
Exactly. It's like our grandparents could have told us these things. Be grateful, be present, move your body, connect with others, take care of yourself, laugh a little.
And yet sometimes we need that reminder, don't we?
We do. Because it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life and forget about these simple but powerful practices.
We get so focused on achieving happiness that we forget to, actually be happy.
Right. It's like we're always chasing after it instead of realizing that it's often right here in front of us.
And that's the beauty of these habits. They help us tap into that happiness that's already within us.
They remind us to appreciate the little things, to savor the moment, to cultivate joy in our everyday lives.
And one thing that really resonated with me from that Science of Happiness episode was how they emphasized that happiness isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal.
Oh, that's so important. Because it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others and thinking, well, they seem so happy, so I must be doing something wrong.
Right. But the truth is, what works for one person might not work for another. And that's perfectly okay.
So it's not about finding some magic formula. It's about experimenting, finding what resonates with you, and creating a recipe for happiness that works for your unique life.
Exactly. And being kind to yourself throughout the process.
Yes. Give yourself permission to try things out, to figure out what works best for you, and to celebrate the small victories along the way.
Because ultimately, happiness is a journey, not a destination.
I love that. It's about enjoying the ride, embracing the ups and downs, and savoring those moments of joy along the way.
And sometimes it's about giving ourselves a break.
Oh, totally. Like, we don't have to be on all the time, striving, achieving.
Right. It's okay to just be.
Just enjoy the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to remember that, hey, life is pretty amazing, even with all its little imperfections.
That's such a good point to end on. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive on happiness, but I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it really is a journey.
It is. And
Yeah.
we get to choose how we navigate that journey.
Exactly. By incorporating these small, simple habits into our daily lives, we can actually steer ourselves in the direction of greater happiness and well-being.
It's true. It's like we have more control than we think.
We really do. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for diving into this topic with me. It's been a pleasure as always.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listener, remember,
Yeah.
you've got this.
Until next time, stay happy, stay curious, and keep those deep dive topics coming.